All right, let's talk Miami Dolphins. It's been a relatively quiet offseason for Miami, but they're starting to make it some really smart moves. They've kind of been sliding under the radar, but these are really good decisions by the Dolphins organizations, picking up some underrated playmakers with a lot of potential. We'll get into that in just a second, but first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Dolphins just made, I think, one of the biggest under the radar moves that people aren't really talking about, adding a key piece to their defense. Let's jump right into the report, then we'll talk about it more on the other side. This is courtesy of NBC Sports. Veteran linebacker Willie Gay, formerly of the Chiefs and Saints, has found a new home. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, great reporter, reports that Gay has agreed to terms with the Dolphins. It will be a one-year deal for Gay with the AFC East club. Gabe spent his first four seasons with the Chiefs before moving on to the Saints as a free agent last year. The 2020 second round pick had 28 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 passes defended, a forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries in 15 games for New Orleans. I think that last sentence is really important. So Willie Gay is a guy who is a playmaker. He is an athletic freak. He does a lot of different things. If you look at his PFF grades, if you look at high level production in terms of like number of tackles for linebacker, it doesn't look especially good, to be totally frank. But when you look at all the things he's able to do, he's able to make tackles for loss. He's able to come up with stops in the run game. He covers well sideline to sideline in terms of making plays, intercepting passes, returning them for touchdowns, forced fumbles, fumble recovery, sacks, pass rushing the quarterback hurries. He's able to do all of that. He is a literal defensive weapon. And that goes back to his college days coming out of school when he was ranked in the 99th percentile in terms of athleticism. Let's go and throw up the graphic here for people who don't believe me. This is courtesy of NFL.com's draft profile, next gen stats. You can see it on the screen there. So you can see this is Willie Gay's numbers in college coming out according to NFL.com. His production score was 76. That's fine. That's decent. His athleticism score, the 99th percentile, 99 out of 100. That's freaking bonkers, folks. That's elite level, scary speed, scary athleticism. That's what he was able to do with the Kansas City Chiefs and that Steve Spagnuolo defense. They were able to use him as like a chess piece to kind of put him all over the place. Yeah, was he a little out of position sometimes? Did he miss some tackles sometimes? Sure, but he blew a lot of plays up for the Chiefs defense. He went to the Saints. The Saints were kind of a dumpster fire last year. New coaching staff, new regime in New Orleans. I'm expecting Willie Gay to come into this Dolphins defense and again be that playmaker. And Anthony Weaver, smart defensive coordinator, to use him in smart ways, the way he did in Baltimore with a lot of those great chess pieces. I think this has a chance to be one of the steals of the offseason for the Dolphins here. Miles, I know you've got a few thoughts on this, but first, Miami fans in the comment section below, how would you grade the acquisition of Willie Gay? Do you love the deal? Of course, it's a one-year prove-it deal, so it's not hurting the long-term team. Think it's an A, you're not sure about it. Think it's a C. You hate the deal for whatever reason. Think it's an F. Give us your opinions and your grade of picking up Willie Gay in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you. What are your thoughts on this move by Miami?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a really good move for the Dolphins. I think now we're seeing that they really have it stacked as far as what they have going for them in the linebacker department. I think they've got some really good starters there. I think Jordan Brooks, he's going to be a solid player for them. I think some other guys they have as well are good. But I think Willie Gay coming in as that rotational piece of guy that can really be that playmaker, as you say. I think that's going to be the key here for the Dolphins, especially because they need someone to come in and kind of jumpstart this defense. If you can have that guy that comes in, every third down or, just a couple times in a drive and really get things going, go out and make a big time play, it can kind of boost the energy of your defense. It's a little bit chintzy. I think it's a little bit, niche, but I think sometimes when you get a guy like Gabe, bring him in on a solid deal and have him be that kind of guy, I think it's really good for a defense to really get him out there, get things going up. And you talk about just his athleticism and his production. Let's compare him. Jordan Brooks, a guy, did really great for the Dolphins last year. I think is a solid linebacker. Got about 50 stops on the year, but that's out of 1,039 total snaps played that season. You flip over to what Willie Gay was able to do. Only played about 200 snaps, but still he was able to get 10 stops on the season in that time period. So really good production from him, getting in the rhythm, not being in an every down type of guy. He was able to be very productive. And you hear the stats, you hear the numbers, the turnovers, the things he's able to come out and do. He's just a really solid addition. I don't think it's going to cost you an arm and leg. I think he's really just a great addition to this team, bolster the depth at the linebacker position. Overall, I think the Dolphins, they're going to be pretty happy with what they get outside of Willie Gay. Now, do I think he's the greatest linebacker in the world? No, but I think when you look at what the Dolphins are doing, they're making smart moves, and this is one that's going to go under the radar. I bet you are going to see Willie Gay's name pop up every so often during defense this year and be like, wow, I didn't know he was there. We don't see him out on the field every time, but when he comes out, that athleticism comes to shine, the playmaking ability comes to shine. He's able to make big plays for this Dolphins team.
And you bring up a great point. Sometimes on defense, and especially on defense, you need a guy that can just force a fumble, a guy that can get a sack, a guy who can create a play out of nothing. Because in today's NFL, with the rules and the structure and all that, it's harder and harder to make stops. It's harder and harder to get off the field to make those game-changing kind of plays. Willie Gay is a guy, and he was this for the Kansas City Chiefs. Was once a game, you just knew he would deliver the big tackle for loss. He'd get a sack, force a fumble, tip a ball, get an interception. He would just make these kind of game-changing plays. 9 out of 10 snaps, it would be a lot of average, some bad mixed in there, but 1 out of 10, it would be special and it could flip an entire game. And that's what Willie Gay is. But the Dolphins kind of made a really smart move here to pair with Gay. They did this earlier this offseason. They signed another linebacker. Let's go and bring up this report. Dolphins fans, you guys are probably already very well familiar with this, but this is courtesy of Jordan Schultz. If we've got it on the screen here, the Dolphins are re signing the linebacker Tyrel Dodson, 2-year, $8.25 million deal, if you weren't familiar. Now, Dodson is more of a traditional steady linebacker, more of a coverage guy, good tackler, good cover linebacker. He's more of a traditional, hey, we'll put him out there. Is he going to make, the big kind of game-changing plays? Not necessarily, but is he steady? Is he consistent? Will he allow this defense to operate without a lot of catastrophes? absolutely, because when he's played for Miami in the past and everywhere else in his career, that's what he's brought to the table. He is a good, solid player, and for $4.125 million a year, that's a steal. That's a high value move. Another great high value decision by the Dolphins front office. But again, Dodson just kind of keeps you the status quo. It keeps you safe. When you pair a guy with Dodson, with Willie Gay, the home run hitter, the guy who's going to fly around and make 1 or 2 big plays a game, you can get really special things on defense, because that's how defense has to work. You got to have a guy that limits the damage, a guy that keeps things contained, and then you have another guy who's a game wrecker, a guy who's a playmaker. That's what the Dolphins are doing here. I think it's a really, really smart strategy. And Miles, let me throw this over to you as a question, just to kind of maybe put a bow on this. Do you think the Dolphins, I know they don't have a lot of cap space. Do you think they've done enough on defense in terms of free agency this offseason, and now they can look towards the draft? Or do you think there's more they need to do to maybe add some depth? Again, they don't have a lot of dollars to play with here.
Yeah, I think that they've done a lot of good stuff as far as free agency, whether they retain people, whether they bring in new guys. I think they're pretty set in that aspect. We see some guys, they've got a new safety room through free agency. They're able to get some guys to come in, do that. I think they're maybe a little bit weak at corner. I don't love what, some of these guys brought to the table last year, but obviously Jalen Ramsey, he's a really solid player, one of the best in the league for a long time. Hader Kohu, he's been decent. I think he's in that mid to low 60 grades. I think they can maybe use another corner, but I think that's something they can look for in the draft. I think as far as what they've done in free agency, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're pretty set there. I think offensively, they did some interesting stuff. We had a video where we break down kind of the pickup of a guy in Westbrook Akine, so go check that one out. And I think they just, they did good stuff. Bring in Daniels as a guard, that was good as well. I think they're done in free agency, though. I'm not saying there couldn't be a onesie, twosie, like depth type of signing that they pick up, but I think they're going to wait to make the rest of their big moves in the draft and maybe see what they don't get in the draft. They kind of fill in through free agency after the fact, but I think that's what we're going to see. I expect them to target a corner here, and I expect them to maybe get another, playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. They already got a lot, but I think maybe they could use one more to kind of complement everything. So to answer your question, I don't think that they're going to go after a big free agent addition for the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to wait and see what they get in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a Dolphins team that, look, the past 3 years, if you remove the injuries, I know you can't remove the injuries, but they've been a good football team, right? So it's not like they needed a drastic overhaul. They do have some really good young players, Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, rookies last year, ready to take that next step in 2025. If they draft as well in this upcoming April, they'll be set for the future as well, going into a really strong season. I love, kind of tinkering around the edges here with some really smart, savvy moves, re-signing Dodson and bringing in Willie Gay, some of the moves you mentioned as well. This Dolphins team has very quietly had a nice offseason as they prepare for the draft. I'm excited to see what they do next, especially this April.